Hey, it's Carol, owner and CEO of Crystals and Chai. Welcome to my podcast and my YouTube channel. This lighting, living in a fifth wheel. It's got its definite perks, but when it comes to lighting, not so much. Okay, here we go. Life with less of my dad. This is part of my book. And I'm reading from my OneNote as per usual. This is a big one, and one I have struggled with most of my life because he died at such a young age of 59 3/4. He died just short of his 60th birthday. So after Mom and Dad got divorced, I don't remember seeing a lot of my dad. And as I mentioned in my last episode, when we did spend time, it was memorable, and it was like a couple of episodes ago. I was and still am, a daddy's girl. I remember living with my grandparents for a bit, and he'd come over and see me on occasion, and I don't blame him for not wanting to visit, because he and Mom had to deal with each other, and I don't know how they got along. I just kind of felt like I just remember feeling really tense when they were together most of the time. I will get more into the subject of my dad later in my book, but I just wanted to really talk about this part of it because my intention of saying how important it is to have your dad or your parent in your life, that's the point of this episode, and to bring light to the work of my book and parents and the importance of them, because it really did affect my life. So I wanted to write this episode with the intentions of saying how important it is to have your dad or your parent in your life. Unless that dad or parent is abusive or something, then no, it's not good. But my dad was not that. The love of my dad and I had, he's my best friend. I could truly talk to him about anything, and there was never any judgment. He was the type of person who would give you anything he had, and sometimes even going without himself to help someone else. And I kind of feel like I'm the same way. To take away a child from a nurturing parent is a form of trauma. It hurt me in ways that, even at the age of 52, I'm still working through. The healing isn't nearly as much as it is now. It's still there, though. He was basically taken away from me twice. The first time when they got divorced, I just don't remember spending a lot of time with him, and that could be both mom and dad's fault. They were both. I wasn't old enough to know really how much time I spent with both of them, and I'm not intentionally blaming my mom for everything. Dad could have fought, and I think he did actually fight a little, but that's a whole other conversation too, another episode. But I also know Mom, just her. Anyways, as my book progresses, you'll find in the episode, especially the big move, and that's the second part. She wasn't always the easiest to get along with. We'll put it that way. But then sometimes neither was I. A parent is someone you can count on and learn from. Your sponge ages are when you're in your little years. You really want to spend time with them. You have a smell, something that brings you back to being young with your parent. A smell of cologne, perfume. You see an old shirt, you hear a song. I used to read books to my kids, and I'll do all sorts of things with my kids when they were little, and they still remember it, and they're in their mid to late 20s now. And it's really important. My dad was such a character. He did have his issues. He drank like a fish and he smoked like a chimney, as I say. Yes, he had his issues and his demons of his own. And yes, I am sure that's part of why I didn't see some of them. I just don't get the mentality and not including the other parent in the lives when there's no abuse. It's abuse of its own, almost, when you really think about your children or your child and how it affects them not to have that person in their life when there's no abuse involved. Now, since he's passed away, I can smell cigarette smoke. And not just any cigarette smoke. It's like how it smelled on him when he was alive. And I know that he's with me. Even though he's always with me in one spirit way or another. I just call on him and then he's there spiritually. But I'm blessed to have that. I feel like I'm very blessed to have that ability. But taking your child away from their parent, it is a form of trauma. Because if they're that daddy's or mommy's boy, girl, whatever, if there is that beautiful relationship involved and you're taking them away from that, I just remember episodes like at Christmas time. And there's some Christmas songs I still can't listen to, or I can, it just makes me cry like a baby. I feel those emotions when I was little, just heartbroken, because I really wanted to see him. I'm like, oh, I get to see my daddy. And when you take that away, it's just, it's not good. Not for that child. That child is like, oh, I want to see my parent. Anyway, I don't mean to keep on about it. I just need to emphasize how important it is to keep the parent in there. What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that? I'd love to hear you. I'd love to hear your voice. Are you going through that now? As an adult, how do you feel about that? Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your story. When I say love, I mean I care. Because going through that, it's not fun. And anyway. And that concludes this episode. Yes, it affects my root chakra and my sacral, but it literally hits my heart chakra because the love I felt for my dad and how much he loves me is just really there in the heart chakra. My go-to crystals are mostly, if you've been listening to the past few episodes, red jasper for the lower chakras, which see if I can get this on there. This is, oh, finally the lighting is good. Red jasper. This is my red jasper that I go to. I also have a smaller one, and I also have I have a few red jaspers. It's just really a good crystal. Also, I selenite to help clear the negative energies I feel in me. And rose quartz. Rose quartz is one of the most loving, healing crystals, along with fluorite. Those two are just really beautiful for the heart chakra. And that concludes this episode. So if you are an energy healer, Reiki specialist, whatever, do you have a special go-to crystal that you go to for your inner child or for your, any of that? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you about that. And so that concludes this episode. For Crystals and Chai products and services and social medias, see the link in the description below. And on a side note, if you've been on my website, it won't exist for a few more days, and then it will be a Square website. I went to Wix, from Wix to Square, and it takes a couple of days for that transfer of the domain from one domain to the other. Wix is a little too much for me, both everything you can do with it, and do I really need all the things that I have on there that I wasn't really using? And that's a whole other episode. If you want to know about my Wix episode, my Wix thing, let me know and I'll share it with you. If you have any questions or comments and want to connect with me, you can either comment on this episode or email me at crystalsandchaihealing@gmail.com. And until next time, thank you for your time. Love and light, Carol.